we're talking about a situation where two people are both in public space, and one might be a danger to the other. So in the last Mishnah, we talked about the someone carrying a beam and someone carrying a pot. But we did have the principle that they both had the right to be in the public space. They both had the right to be there. And the Mishnah, we're now going to get into the sixth Mishnah, the third chapter. The sixth Mishnah just turns the heat up a little bit, because these guys are not just being in the public space, but there's something about how they are behaving in the public space. So two people are going along in the public domain. Echad rats, one of them is running. So one of them is running, echad rats, echad malech, and the other's walking. So one seems to be a bit dangerous. One's running and the other's walking. Or shehayu shnehim ratzim. Maybe they were both running. And we're kind of expecting the Mishnah to come along and say, look, the guy who's running, if they bash into one another, the guy who's running is liable. We're expecting the Mishnah to teach us that you can't just run in the public domain and bash into someone and be exempt. But that is not the way the Mishnah rules. The Mishnah goes on to say, "V'hiziku zeh zeh." They injured each other. Shnehem putzurim. They are both. Neither is liable. They're both free of any liability. Neither one of these two is liable, even though one of them has actually been running in the public space. And it's fascinating that the Gemara actually overturns this Mishnah. Well, clearly the Gemara doesn't like to reverse the Mishnah, but let's see how it overturns it. Just one tiny comment. Matnitin be'erev Shabbat bein hashmashot. Our Mishnah is talking about twilight on Erev Shabbat, twilight on the eve of Shabbat. Our Mishnah is talking about a time when people are frantic, that everyone's running backs and forwards, and most likely, very likely, you are running to perform a mitzvah. So the Gemara is saying, okay, fine. If this guy's running to perform a mitzvah on Erev Shabbat, maybe at this point he's not liable. But the Gemara then opens the possibility, quoting Rabbi Issi, that in any other time of the week, he absolutely is liable. In any other time of the week, this guy running is absolutely liable. And of course, that is why the Gemara says that the Mishnah brings in the second case, or shehayu shnehem ratzim. They are both running. Shnehem putzurim. Neither one is liable. So the Gemara says, okay, if they're both running, neither one is liable. But if one of them is running, he's absolutely liable, except on Erev Shabbat, as it is getting dark. As it is getting dark, when everyone is rushing to fulfill some kind of mitzvah. And the Mishnah then goes on to other kinds of dangerous behavior. And we're going to look at someone splitting wood, someone who's splitting. But who's splitting here is clearly splitting wood. There's no other thing that you're going to be doing that is splitting. Someone is splitting wood. He's splitting wood in his backyard, like Ronald Reagan. He's splitting the logs in his backyard. And he's gonna injure someone in a public domain. Now, this must remind us of something. Must remind us of the verse in Devarim. There's a story in Devarim, I think in the Parsha of Kitei, V'asher yavo et re'ehu b'ya'ar lachtov eitzim. Some guy goes out with his neighbor into a wood to cut wood, into a grove to cut wood, and he's swinging this axe, and the axe head flies off, and strikes the other guy, and the other guy dies. And the living one, the person that caused the accident, well, he's guilty of manslaughter, and he has to be exiled, but he's not guilty of murder. That's the situation I think that the Mishnah has in the back of its mind, and certainly the Gemara brings out this situation. So if someone is splitting wood in a private domain, and we know that splitting wood is a dangerous activity, it can even lead to death if the axe head flies off. And he injures someone in public space. Or maybe he's in public space. Maybe he's out there in the forest and he injures someone in his garden, in a garden. Maybe he's in his own garden and he injures someone in another garden, from private space to private space. And in all three of these situations, the Mishnah rules chayav. He is liable. He is absolutely liable. And the Bartanura explains it. Why is he liable? Chayav, why liable? Even though he did it in his own domain. So the Bartanura is starting with the really most limited possible case where he's chopping wood in his own garden. So even though he's in his own garden, and there aren't very many people there. There's no reason really to kind of build in big health and safety regulations for your own garden, even though today we do it sometimes because we're afraid of litigation. The name Havalela Ayone, but we would say that he should have thought about it. He should have considered it, even when you're only in your own space. If you're doing something dangerous, Havale La'ayone, he should have thought about it. And thus, even in this situation, even when he's only in his own yard, he is liable. He is liable if some axe head or some chip flies off and injures somebody else outside his own property. And when we're engaging in dangerous activities, we need to think.